Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is the way that arguments work and that the way that we argue impacts how we think. I think that a common frustration of mine and likely others is that I will try to argue with Republican talking points, and it doesn't matter how much I know because they're so many of their beliefs are not based on actually knowing the facts or researching the facts. They're based on vibes and things that sound like common sense. It's sort of, and I don't mean this to denigrate an entire political party, but I mean at this point, like, screw you. Look at what's going on around us. Um, but it's like that expression where it's like arguing with an idiot is like playing chess with a pigeon. No matter how good you are, they're just gonna shit on the board and prance around like they've won. Like, I will be in a conversation with someone, and we will have a disagreement on our fundamental beliefs, the things that I believe in my core and the things that they believe in their core. And I will bring up the evidence that I have and the things that I have read that have brought me to these conclusions, because that is how I formed those conclusions. Because it's important to me to know what it is that I'm fighting for and whether or not my beliefs hold up under scrutiny. And I will be met with just the most brain dead, unrelated takes, and it bothers me. I think, not to get too derailed, but I think it's a symptom of, well, at its core, it's a symptom of the education system and its failings and the impact of, I would say, short form media as well. Just because people can't focus or like think, people don't think deeply about things, it seems, or at least most people. And I don't know if it's a lack of ability or if it's something that's been conditioned into us, but I think between the fact that everything is sensationalized, where you've been fed so much information that we don't know what is true and what's not, and then you have algorithms that are divvying up that information to where I'm only getting the most blatantly left crazy. I've gotten some crazy stuff on my timeline. I'm not gonna lie to you. Stuff that made me go, wow, this, I don't know if I believe all that. And I can only imagine what's going on the other side of the internet. But I saw a thing the other day that was talking about, the skinny of it is, if you watch like a video or something, you are more likely to believe what you're hearing because you're just processing the audio as it comes at you, and you're not really having enough time to really sit and ponder it. Whereas like it used to be, people would get the news and they would actually have to sit there and think about it and read it and be like, and it would be at whatever pace you process the information would be the pace that you absorb the information because you're reading it. Whereas with videos, people just throw things at you to get you to have an emotion, to get you to interact with whatever media they're throwing at you, so they can then be fed to more people, and it's an endless feedback loop of shit. Then you pair that with the things like the headlines nowadays, where people will like twist a story as much as they can to fit the narrative that they believe. And then if you actually read the story or see the context for the story or the things, the socioeconomic existence that it happened in, it's totally different than what they're trying to show you, but nobody sees that. They see the headline and they go, huh, and then they scroll on to the next thing hoping for something that will give them a hit of entertainment. And I think that's a problem. Like I've talked to, one thing that I always hear come up is when I say, like, who gives a shit if people are gay? Who gives a shit if people are trans? I mean, honestly, it shouldn't matter. We're the land of the free. We've sent enough people overseas to die to let us do what we want, to let two men kiss. Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't affect me. It doesn't, honestly, it triples the marriage industry if nothing else. I mean, shoot. And one of the talking points I hear from people that are like super into the alt-right pipeline is like, well, Rome and all great empires fell because they accepted homosexuals, and that's just patently false. Had nothing to do with that. Rome was always gay, bro. Do you know anything about ancient Greece? Like those societies were like gayer than anything else. Like pretty much the entire ideology of that entire section of the world was do whatever you want as long as you're not a bottom. Why do you think they loved olive oil so much? But I digress. It just and it's difficult because I think on the other end of it, if you are trying to have a fast-paced conversation where you're going back and forth and arguing, and I mean actually arguing, not fighting with someone, not just name calling, not, you know, it's more difficult to actually formulate a response that's based on the facts that we have, that's based on the evidence we have and the evidence we've seen, because that's not what they've learned to trust. That's not what they've learned. But it's also hard to consolidate all of that information into a concise talking point where you can just be like, well, what about this? And then they're like, well, I don't like the whole thing with the litter boxes in schools. That wasn't real. Some Australian dude came up with that as a joke to screw with us, and the Republicans ran with it and made legislature in reaction to that. They've pushed forth bills that say that we can't let the furries have litter boxes in schools. That hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. I did see somewhere that there were reports of litter containers being in schools, and those were for emergency supplies for school shootings, so that the children didn't get shot in the face. But this other thing that we have so freaking much evidence that, yeah, we should probably fix the gun crisis in this country. No, we can't deal with that. We can't deal with that. Like, guns kill about 50,000 people a year. And that's citizens. That's somebody going out and killing 50,000 like innocent people. Not one person, but you know what I mean. On average. And that's a lot of people. Now I'm not saying take the guns necessarily. I mean, at this point, we probably really need the guns. With where our government is going, we all need a gun. But then they always say, well, it's a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue. And I agree. It is. Because everyone else is being pushed into poverty by the systems that we've put in place. But they don't want to actually address the mental health aspect. So if you're going to not address the mental health aspect, when that's your entire talking point for keeping these guns, and you're not going to address the gun violence, you're just going to go, oh man, that sucks. I think that's why nobody really, or I won't say nobody, I think that's why there were so many people justifying Charlie Kirk's death. Because his entire platform, he said it himself. Yeah, I mean, some people will die, but that's just something you got to do. I mean, if you are going to make your life's work that statement, you should be ready to die for it. I mean, I'm not saying you should die for it, but you've logicked yourself into that coffin, you know? I think it's frustrating because the majority of people at this point don't want a revolt. They don't want a revolution. They don't want anything like that, and that's understandable. Those things are difficult and inconvenient. But simultaneously, if nobody's willing to have a conversation, or at least the people that are directly supporting the things that we are not supporting, or if none of them are open to having a conversation, like, what do we do? You know? And if none of them have the capacity to understand the conversations we're trying to have. I don't understand what's the plan then, you know? I want to have a prosperous country. I want to have a good country. I would love for everyone to see complete and total utopia, even if somehow they make it work with capitalism. I mean, it would take a lot more regulation than we have. But I don't see what avenues we're supposed to have at our disposal to make those changes happen. Because obviously, like, doing it democratically has not yielded the best results. Whether that be because of interference, whether that be because of the media. Oh, I'm out of focus. Story of my life. Whether that be just because people are stupid and lazy and don't want to be informed. I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to do at this point. But helping Israel bomb Palestine off the side of the planet, having our own government villainize anyone that disagrees with them and kill them in the streets, bombing elementary schools in Iran, I just feel like somehow that's not going to be how we see the improvements we need. I mean, I'm no doctor. I'm no politician, but I don't see the logic there. Maybe some really articulate right wingers can tell me what exactly my empty noodle is just helpless to comprehend, but I don't know.